What is up, everyone? JD here. Got an EDC update for you. Let's jump into it. All right, so what we're doing today is basically running through the top 10 most carried pocket knives that I've had in the pocket here in the last month or so since I've last done this update. So we're going to kick it off with the first one. This is actually going to be the CMB Braveman. I really like this. I know that crossbar locks are not wildly popular, but when they're done well, they're extremely good locks, especially for a satisfying deployment. So you got titanium scales with a titanium pocket clip and backspacer, steel hardware, which makes this something that is a little bit more affordable, and it is rocking S35VN with a beautiful hand satin finish on here for the full blade. You don't see that too often. Usually you'll see like a hand satin that's done in one area or one spot. And I know that we does this a lot with some of their knives as well, where they go with a full hand satin finish. You're able to get a full 4-finger grip on this one, so a nice full-size knife. It does have an excellent edge termination and sharpening tool on here. Kind of reminds me of how Chris Reeve does the Sabenza. And then with the bearings, you're able to get a very smooth deployment action and close action on this one. Thumb studs appropriately placed, and they have the appropriate steps on here to have enough grip on them without standing out too far from the blade. And again, very good, clean, closed profile and open profile look while still being nice in hand. So CMB Braveman starting us off today on the list. Next one is going to be one that you guys are familiar with. It is going to be the Kaiser Milital in year 2 of being strong contender for staying in the rotation. It's just such an excellent design, great size, very neutral ergos with these contoured scales. This is just one that has been a mainstay, and for good reason. It's very well made. This one is the limited edition version, but they have budget versions, mid-tier versions, higher end versions, and it's just a real good EDC. Very fidgety, good deployment. I did throw skiffs on here, but even on the factory Delrin style bearings, this has excellent action. Good slicer with the thin cutting geometry on here, and this one too, having that hand satin finish. I think this might be the only other one in the collection that just happened to go back to back with these two. Great access to that lock bar, superb detent, very good fit and finish. I will say the only thing on here is it's just a hint if you really rock it, where you can feel a little bit of looseness in the pivot. But again, if you just grabbed it and checked it, it might not be something that you would be able to tell easily. I've really enjoyed this one a lot. It's a model that I recommend very often to folks for EDC, but if you felt like the Milital was too large, they do have a mini. That one would be more suited for somebody with smaller hands, but medium to large hands, definitely go with the full-size one. Next up is one, unfortunately, that is closing out. Sad to see Arc Form going away, but this is the Theory. Great utility blade shape on here. Comes down to a very strong tip. Lots of belly with a good flat geometry, so it cuts very well. Fairly neutral ergos here. It does fill the hand out nicely. It does have internal relief cut here, so it has a completely sterile pocket clip side, titanium backspacer, titanium scale with titanium pocket clip. Now they do have some that are finished in fat carbon or with a titanium show side scale. I did go with the Arctic because I do like blues on some of my knives. So very, very comfortable. Awesome ergos, jimping on the spine here. And even though I normally prefer studs, these little disc or whatever you want to call them, they actually work very well. So I kind of find that I land right on the bottom there for a very satisfying deployment. And then for the reverse flick, I kind of end up underneath of that. So I'm very satisfied with that. And it does come into the cutting geometry slightly. But what I have found is if you just canter back slightly because of how much belly this has, it goes through the material without having any issues with slipping out. Good access to the lock bar. It did come with Delrin style washers, I think, but bearings, but I swapped out to skiffs here, same thing. I like the solidity in the pivot. I like how glassy smooth it makes everything on the open and close. If these are still in stock anywhere, because they are well under 200 on their closeout price, highly recommendable. M390 blade steel, great performer for EDC. That is the theory. All right, switching it up a little bit, we have the Concept Tarkin. I really was blown away by this one when I got to check out the review sample. Didn't love the speed hole version. It was fine, but not really my style. So I went with the flamed ammo without the speed holes, and I really do like this one a lot. Titanium scales, again, flamed ammo, titanium pivot collar and backspacer with steel hardware and a thumb disc and front flipper for deployment. I think the other thing too here, a lot of people probably don't really love thumb disc, but this is one of the only ones that I've ever encountered that I truly, really enjoy, that really is functional without aesthetically being too displeasing for my eyes. So I do really enjoy that. Detent is dialed in very nicely. This is on the stock Delrin style bearings because they do use pocket race washers, so that it kind of lays on the washer a little bit better and gives you a very tight pivot and gives a very good feel for fit and finish. And then I haven't had a chance yet to sharpen this out, but it does have like a Japanese tanto. It's very subtle. I missed it in the initial review that I did on this one, and then when I got the second one, that's when I realized it. It's so subtle. I didn't catch it at all. But it would be something for me. I would probably just sharpen out and just have this be a regular drop point. A little bit thinner than everything that I have shown you so far as the scales go. They are contoured, but very thin, which is going to make this very nice for EDC because it'll fit flush in the pocket, won't print, doesn't take up a lot of space. You almost don't even know that it's there. Good weight to it. And again, they are just continuing to really improve and impress for me over at Concept. Internal relief cut, lock bar access is really good. So even if you don't like to disengage like that, if you like to slide over, there's no really hot spot created in any of the ways that I have seen that folks disengage their knives. So just awesome knife. Blade steel is 20 CV, which seems like they're doing a good job. It has held an edge very well, has not been chippy. Doesn't seem like it shies away from me, and part of that is the thin cutting geometry. But when I'm cutting cardboard or breaking cardboard down with this one, I haven't noticed any unusual wear on here. So if I had to guess, they probably are running it around 60, 61 or something like that, which is pretty common for a pocket knife with 20 CV on it. But that is the Tarkin. All right, next up is one that's a little bit newer to the collection and was recommended by my friend Greg over at G-Ball Vision. This one is coming from Artisan, and it is the Crusoe. This one here is a little bit more of a beefier knife. You got thick titanium scales that are chamfered around the edges. You do have minimal construction here, 2-screw construction on both scales. And actually, I take that back. That is, yeah, no, that's right. 2-screw construction on both scales. You have the one that goes into the pocket clip and into the barrel, and then the barrel, and then the pivot. And actually, I think this is captive, so it's actually just 3 screws. I did say 4, but that is incorrect. You do have some milling on the internal for weight reduction, but it is still going to be a little bit of a heavier knife because it does feel like it's a little bit more hard use. Still really good cutting geometry on here, but not as thin and slicey as, say, like the Tarkin that we've just saw a moment ago. S90V is your blade steel thumb stud and front flipper. The only thing that I will complain about this one is I don't really love the pocket clip placement on here. I think it looks a little odd without it being in line. And I also feel like it's a little bit of a hot spot here where it does kind of poke at me sometimes on occasion, depending on how I'm holding the knife. Really good lock bar access. Very good action, very satisfying, nice tight jimping on here. With this one, I kind of forget sometimes you got to kind of go up. So it looks like it's a little bit of a harder deployment, but once you handle it a little bit and you mess with it some and you just go back to remember kind of up and around to follow through on it, and it does create a very crisp deployment on there. Sounds are a little muted with the thicker scales. But again, that's just because the scales are absorbing it. Outside of the pocket clip, very comfortable ergos, very good cutter. And again, I think this is going to handle everything that you can throw on it. I did notice after I've had it for a little while, didn't pick that up on the initial review. This one has a little bit more tolerance around the pivot. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when I'm shaking it, I kind of feel it a little bit move around in the pivot. I tried to make sure that this is as tight as I can be with having the good smooth action on there without it being a guillotine. You can see it's just a little bit of a shaker. Other than that, for the money under $200, this is a really solid pickup for a work knife. And again, does give me kind of Sebenza-esque vibes. That is the Crusoe. All right, we're down to the final 10, and this one's probably no surprise to anybody. Just like the Militao, the Padre has been in my collection a very long time. It is a fantastic EDC, definitely more of a hard use, larger knife, but they do have the Compadre for those that don't like a knife as large as this one. You have that diamond textured pattern, a much thinner profile, so it is deceptively good in the pocket as far as carry. Very tall, thin flat ground. I mean, this thing gets really thin as you get close to the edge. You got a nice dedicated Fort Choil with some jimping on the back that is aggressive, so it does give you really nice purchase. You're not going to slide around on this one a ton, and it's, again, very comfortable. No hot spots for me, regardless of which way I'm holding it and what type of cutting I'm doing with it. Very, very happy with this one. Nice little clip point with an opening hole and some pockets there. Very well-tuned detent, riding on multi-row bearings from the factory. This one has outstanding action, guys. Just a very nice knife. Very easy to disengage the lock bar, and it's just one that I really like both aesthetically and ergonomically in hand. And again, Vanek super steel, super clean steel, titanium, everything that you're getting on this one for the price, I think it is very, very competitive. That is the Padre. All right, some oldies but goodies coming back around here now that things have slowed down a little bit as we're getting closer to Blade Show Atlanta. Releases are slowing down a little bit. I kind of get to reacquaint myself with some favorites, and this is the Quiet Carry 9. I do have the Magna Cut version. I know that they just recently re-released these models, but they did it in the Vanek Super Clean, so this was more of a limited run. I don't know that they'll ever bring the Magna Cut back. They may. I just don't know that they will, because it seems like everything that they've re-released, they've been doing in Vanex, which is an excellent steel. Knurling with an inlay. I do have the camo fat carbon frost, which I think looks really good aesthetically. Very vibrant blues and whites on top of the black there. You do have that matching knurling on the other side. Very faint micro milling here, which does give some grip, but it does not create any sort of rough in and out of the pocket where it feels like it's sawing. To me, Quiet Carry does some of the best pocket clips in the business. I know this one looks short, but it actually functions very well, goes in and out of the pocket very nicely, and it is very comfortable ergonomically because it doesn't create any sort of hotspot. I do like the size of this one for EDC. Not really a user, but not really a finesse knife. It's kind of sitting in that sweet spot in between where it's an all-rounder, kind of able to do everything. And the fit and finish on here are just excellent. I did install skiffs, surprise, surprise, on this one for even smoother action. Very glassy on the open and close, very solid in the pivot. Good access to that lock bar. Really hard to tell on camera, but there is just a little bit of chamfer on this one to disengage it in any manner that you want to disengage it, even though it is thinner with the contoured scales. Carries nicely in hand, feels good, and very nice sounds. Very clicky clacky, so very, very crisp is what I'm trying to say here. One of my favorites, easy to recommend, made in Taiwan, fit and finish, second to none on these. Very easy to recommend any Quiet Carry, but I do love the 9.4 EDC. All right, one that's newer in the collection is going to be the Mini Nova. You guys know I had the Nova for a very long time, and I actually opted to size down to the Mini Nova. I feel like this still works very well as a main carry, and it is very well built, magnet cut steel. I got the all stonewash matching blade and handles here. Full length back spacer that is kind of almost looking like an integral. First from Vero to have the lanyard post in there for those that do like them, and then a titanium pocket clip with all titanium hardware. It did come with stamped bearings, but again, installed those skiffs for the solidity in the pivot. And I don't know that it's a huge difference, but I do feel like this is a little bit thinner than the full sized, and the full size actually got down to a nice thin edge, good edge termination. But I will say they need to bring that plunge grind back a little bit. It is really a little bit closer than I would like it to be to the edge there, but with it being that the stop pin is hitting behind that, very well behind that, it looks like. You could expand that out a little bit. I'd probably just do a Sabenza and just angle in, and you would still have plenty of cutting edge. I'm able to get a 4-finger grip on here, and it is a comfortable grip with no hot spots. And the fit and finish on this being that it is a Best Tech build is phenomenal. So very nicely built. Is it Best Tech or is it Rayot? My editor might have to throw that on there. I can't remember. I feel like they use Best Tech a lot, which they do on their quality, on their higher end builds, do very good quality, but it could be that Rayot is the OE for that. All right, coming in at number 2, getting back to some of my favorite in my collection and another long-standing carry, going to be my Spyderco Manix 2 build, lightweight M4 with the Applied Weapon Tech scales, Titanium ball cage, beta from aluminum that allow for the tritium inserts. I get questions on this one all the time when people are watching. I don't even know how old the video is where I installed these, but they're like, it doesn't say it uses the ball cage, and it says that the action on it is that it's going to be too tight of tolerances, etc., etc. Again, I've had this built for quite a long time now. This is a longer standing knife in my collection, and I've had zero issues with that build. The coated blade has held up well. I've thrown a lot at this. Still working on stropping the factory edge because it was so sharp. I never really had it dull. Just dropping it after each use, it's brought it back to a very fine edge. And Spyderco does a good job with their factory edges. I've never really felt compelled to lay it back to have any sort of different angle. With this being the lightweight, the newer lightweight, it is able to be disassembled, which is why you do see these scales on here. Unfortunately, older Manix 2 lightweights, I get asked that as well. You can't take those apart. Those are push pin construction, and they, you just can't take them apart unless you can figure out hardware that will work. I've never seen anyone that's been able to readily list or show where you can get that type of hardware. The aluminum scales on here are constructed very well. I will say, there it is. I was going to say, there, with it being in pocket so much and being used so much, you can see a little bit starting to wear away. Trying to remember where I saw another spot where it is down here. No, that's just shiny. I think there's another mark on here, which, I'm not really surprised. The coating has held up, though, very well, considering that it is aluminum and it is a coated aluminum. Good weight on this one. I love this for summertime carry, lightweight carry, or when I know I'm going to be doing a large amount of cutting. I really like the M4 and the geometry that Spyderco puts on here. It's really well done. Now, this is the model example of how you do an edge termination. That's why you don't see a sharpening choil, just because there's nothing here. So if you hand sharpen, you're going to be able to bring it all the way back. If not, it'll just leave a little unusable edge right next to the nub, which I'm never even near there. When I'm choking up, I'm like way up here. So it's never been an issue for me. Riding on washers, I think this one maybe has a hint of side to side, but it's barely noticeable. Which is why you're able to see this one drop. Probably could be tightened a little bit more. Yeah, because it's literally falling on its own. But that's my Manix 2 lightweight. I really like this one a lot, guys. All right, last one is going to be my WE-XL. Kind of the opposite of what you saw happen with the Nova and the Mini Nova. I really liked the original, but I wished it was a little bit larger because of its utility blade shape. Whereas the Nova is more of an all-arounder, opening packages, occasionally breaking a box down, doing more light-duty tasks, light-duty cutting being an EDC. I really found that I liked to use the hyphen for more hard-use, heavy-duty tasks. And on that, I like to have a little bit more size, a little bit more purchase, the ability to kind of manipulate and move around on it. And this has a very thin hollow ground 20 CV blade. And I know that a lot of people have said that WE needs to bump up their heat treat on there. And I haven't tested this one, but I'm wondering if it actually hits closer to that 62 than they care to let on, because it really does hold its edge very well when I'm throwing very poor cardboard that's coarse and who knows made up of what when they glue all that stuff together, and it never really gets chippy. I've had to strop it because I have cut with it so much, but to me that's not uncharacteristic for any steel. When you cut down a bunch of cardboard or a bunch of dense material, stuff that's going to really pull at your edge and kind of dull it down a little bit, stropping it up is just a great way to keep that edge going. And it's been fantastic. Good access to the lock bar. It does have that diamond texture pattern that was not on the original. I did go with the flame nano. I just really liked the way that it looked with the satin hardware to match the blasted finish, which I'm not usually a big fan of. But aesthetically, I think it kind of pulls it all together, and they did a fantastic job with the build on this. The fit and finish on Wii's are excellent. There's never any up and down, side to side, no lash, just excellent, excellent. They compete with Bestech and Rayout for me for build quality, and they do have quite a few models that I like. Now, some of them are a little bit more expensive than I would like, but I really do enjoy some models from them, especially when they're more reasonably priced. We'll go ahead and bring it on out here to wrap up. We did finish with the Wii hyphen that is out here, and these are in no particular order. Just I know these are the 10 that I carried the most here in the last month or so. The Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight. We have the Quiet Carry 9, the Kunwu Padre, the Vero Mini Nova. These are not all going to fit, guys, just so you know. The more recently acquired Crusoe from Artisan Cutlery. I think I can fit one more down here, just barely. Oh, that Nova was just a rocking on that pocket clip. Really like the Tarkin. I think this one is really under a lot of people's radar. That one would be one I would recommend picking up. And I do have affiliate links down in the description if you are interested in these. Most of them I have affiliate links for, or places where you can go to get them. And when you use those affiliate links, it does help the channel. The Theory from Arcform, who unfortunately is closing their doors. The Militaw, again, easy recommendation for anyone and everyone. I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way so I can get these on here. Really kind of close to that Crusoe blade. And then the Braveman, this one I've had a little bit less time than some of the others here. I would say these two are probably actually these three are the newest that I've had the least amount of time with, but I've had the larger version of this one that I've had experience with. I've had other Artisans and CMB made knives, so easy to recommend on fit and finish and build quality because they are very good. Just you will see more updates on these in the future. Let me know what you think about my top 10 again over the last 30 or so days. What did you like? What didn't you like? And what are you carrying the most lately? I love to hear that from you guys. Special shout out and thanks to my channel members. Appreciate your support. I'm out of here. I hope all of you have a great week. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.